well. So today I'm doing a really chill video, right? So it's November right now as I'm filming this, November 24th. I finished NaNoWriMo a couple days ago, and I was thinking as I was doing it this year, it's like, which of my novels are nano novels? Because I've been doing NaNoWriMo since my first year in 2011. So it's been 12 years at this point, and I've published 27 books. I think that's the right number. It might go up as this video's up, but I'm at the point where I've published so many that I kind of lost track somewhere along the line. But I was thinking, like, because not all of them are obviously nano novels because there's not enough years. I think that one or two of these might actually be a Camp NaNoWriMo novel, but the website does not specify. At least I didn't look hard enough. But it was interesting to me to see like which it was, and I did my first novel. I knew a good handful of them. Some of them kind of surprised me. I didn't remember that they were. But yeah, let's talk about. I'll tell you about them. I'll tell you how many drafts I went through, because especially these first ones. Because in 2011, I was November 2011. 12 years ago. I would have been 14 years old. So obviously the first one I ever wrote has gone through many drafts. My first nano novel, which was my first published novel, which was my first finished novel ever, is Scary, which is the first book in the Pentology of Hell. Now, this was my main like focus for years and years and years. I actually was like only focusing on this like for years. It was just this series, and that the first series that kind of broke through and wasn't that was actually the Tinan series. But so this first one was a nano novel. The second one was a nano novel. The third and the fourth were also nano novels, but these ones were actually written as one. Originally, and you can kind of tell that if you read them, because you can tell that not much happens. This one is a lot of setup for the very last book. But let's talk about them. So it's the first 4 books in the Pentology of Hell. The 5th book, Son of Perdition, which I'll put a picture of up here. It was not a nano novel, so I don't have it with me, but this basically is a 14-year-old's having a like vision after having to deal with the fact that she is in fact mortal and is in fact an atheist and knows that there's nothing after death and would like to make herself feel better about that. So while the titles are very Christian influenced, that just means that I did just steal parts of words that sounded good out of the Bible and made them my titles. But this follows, the first book is Scary. It follows these 3 kids who accidentally end up going to hell, and they have to kind of fight their way through it, get out. The second book follows the apocalypse, and then books 3 onward we're in hell, where there's this witch who's trying to take over everything, and like make hell a better place, because they're half demons and stuff like that. I will show you the blurb on the back. There's my very first. No, it's not. It's not the first one I ever used. Do I have the first one on any of these? I do. That's the first one. This is the second one I used, but since I did a reprint when Amazon let me do hardcovers, that's why this has this. Even though this was my first book, so this is my first book I ever published. This is the first book I ever wrote. And shout out to that one person in Germany who buys these in hardcover, because I know it's the same person, because they're just buying the next one sequentially, and they finished them now, so I gotta like get moving on the next one. And it's always Germany. It's always hardcover, but. Yes, no, I really enjoy these books. So there are 5 of them. They're all out. The complete series is out. I've got like novellas and stuff coming, but the complete main series is out. After that, this one actually shrunk. Mostly my novels grow, is the thing. This one shrunk, and it became a novella, and that's Columbiner. So this is my school shooting book. This is my Columbine book. This is about this kid who moves to a new town, and he ends up falling in with the wrong kid, and who happens to be a Columbiner, and it's just kind of about his descent into that. This one is, I've noticed it less this year, but in previous years, this was one of my earliest books too. This is my 5th book I published. This one was kind of a sleeper hit for me. Like, I use the word hit very, very loosely, but it would just consistently, get picked up on Kindle, very rarely in paperback, but Kindle, I would sell a couple of them, like a good number of them a year, less so this year, but no, this one has been very consistent for me, probably because it has the word Columbine in the title. I don't know. The back's kind of hard to read, but you can pause and read that if you would like. That's my little blurb. But this one was in, when was this one? I did this one in 2017. The other ones were just 2011, 2012, and 2013. They were just in a row. After that, this one was the next year. And this was, for the longest time, I considered this the best book that I'd ever written. I think until like Hell came out, I considered this the best book I'd ever written. I think I liked The Yachts Boys more, but I consider this one the best. Now, as I'm working on Guillaume, it might be Guillaume, but this one, The Crucifixion of Craig Knox. So, I got really into the West Memphis 3, literally 3 days before this November, NaNoWriMo. And then I was like, I'm gonna write a West Memphis 3 book, and I wrote it twice. I wrote, the first one was just a whole lot of feelings, and I wrote it in 4 days. I remember that. It was like the first 4 days of November, I wrote 50,000 words. It's the fastest I ever won NaNoWriMo. I've never like beat that since. And then I took the rest of the month and rewrote it, so I had a little bit more structure. And then, saying this is the weirdest for me, because I have a very generally kind of set idea of how I write things. I'll write the first draft, I'll reread it, I'll write out an outline based on my first draft, I'll rewrite it, I'll either print it out or I'll get like a proof from Amazon, I'll edit it, I'll retype it, and I'll be done. Like that's how it is for 80% of the books I write. This one, so I printed out those 2 first drafts, and then I created the Franken draft, where I literally took both of them, and sometimes I could put pages together, but then I would have to kind of tape it together here. And at the end, I ran out of papers, and so I had like these old like children's books, and so I started taping them onto there, and it's the Franken draft. I kept it because I'm just kind of like kind of amazed that I did that. It was my senior year of college, and I was like, I've got time. It's because I took 18 credits a semester, and so I ended up like just taking fun classes my senior year because it's like I didn't have to stress about them, except for like my 2 generals. I'm good at school. That's what I've always been good at. And then I retyped that, and then I made an outline from that, and then all that sort of stuff. But yeah, for the longest time, like I said, I considered this the best book I'd ever written. I still think it's a good one. But yeah, it's a West Memphis 3 story. Here's the back. It's not, yeah, like I said, they're based on the real, yeah, no. It's never been very popular. After that, we've got the 2 that I consider the worst books I've ever made. One of them was a Camp Dano novel, and one of them is from 2020. So, these 2, and I realized I could take them down and like actually make them good. I don't think they're bad. I think that they're, so a lot of times when I write drafts, they're really not clean drafts. Like they will have like paragraphs where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And I'll literally write that in the draft, especially during NaNoWriMo when like words are king. These 2 books I didn't do that with. Like the drafts came out relatively clean. They came out relatively like, they went from point A to point B. They didn't have any weird gaps where I was like, I'll figure this out later. They were really solid 50,000 word books. And so I just published them as is. I know it's like, you're not supposed to do that. I don't think they're bad. I say they're the worst I've ever written, but I don't think they're bad. And so with these 2, I literally, like I went in, I edited them. I did like make sure obviously I didn't have any typos and stuff like that. But the first one, so my Nano 2020, is Carl and Jimmy. And so Carl and Jimmy, the fucking tagline, they are here for something. Thank God nobody's bought Carl and Jimmy this year. Carl and Jimmy is about, it's based on, it's like a retelling of Carl Panzram, who was a serial killer in like the early 1900s. And so I got really enamored with the fact that he at one point was really good friends with this guy named Jimmy Prescott when they were in like reform school together, and they like broke out. It was in Montana, I believe, and they just went across North Dakota and they burned churches because Panzram was from Minnesota, East Grand Forks, which is very close to North Dakota. So I consider him a home state boy, even though he's not from North Dakota. It's something. This is the back here. I had fun with it. There's a lot going on. One thing I did really have fun with, and I think it was pretty good, especially considering I did not do a full rewrite on this one. I really like Carl's voice, because that one thing I did do for sure was really kind of try to embody, because Carl Panzram did write a memoir, and it is wonderful, especially considering the fact that he had never had a formal education. I tried to kind of embody that voice, but yeah. The other one is one of the Pentology of Hell books. This is technically from Camp Nano, from July 2021. It's Buyer, which is, it's like a side story for one of the main characters. I guess he becomes the main character. He's a side character in the first book. And the reason this exists is because I read Fantastic Land and I love the idea of an oral history or like interviews, and so I wrote this. And again, I didn't do much editing. This one had more than Carl and Jimmy. I remember, like, there were some parts I had to really cut out. But yeah, I got this one too. It's weird because right now I'm writing Class B, which is more of a direct sequel to, like, in this one you can read it without reading the entire Pentology of Hell. That one is obvious, you know, there's stuff in here that does allude to the fact that being in the Pentology, like the fact that, like, his mother was like a half witch and she could heal him and stuff like that. But Class B does have kind of his story from his own words. In this case, in this book, it's everybody else's but his. So yeah, there's that one, and that one too is not very popular. My buddy in Germany bought it, but I don't think anybody has this year. But yeah, these are the books that I have published that were nano novels, which is honestly not as many as I would have thought. I used to be way more into just writing nano novels than I am now. I do want to get back to just doing drafts during nano and camp nano stuff, just because otherwise I'm just always drafting, because drafting for me is the most fun because I just don't know what the fuck's happening. But yeah, we'll see if I do have some other ones that are not published. So Nano 2015, Nano 2016, both of those I have no idea when or if I'll ever rewrite those ones. Nano 2019, which again, Camp Nano 2021 is actually, I would hope to get that done next year. Nano 2021 was really fun. I really hope to get that one out soonish. Nano 2022, part of the Boy series, will come out at one point, and then this year's, which is a sequel to non-series, which actually means that it'll probably be out sooner than Nano 2022, just because I've got like a novella to rewrite on that one, which I'll probably do next year, and then maybe the first book, the Tinon sequel series in 2025, maybe, which is a weird thing to think about. And I'm planning out that far, but just, I mean, I'm self-published, but, and you know, that's one of the reasons I'm self-published, is because I can put up 6 books here, which is what I've really been doing. But yeah, that's all the books I have that have been nano novels. And that is out of these ones, my favorite is probably still Crucifixion of Craig Knox. I do, like, though, have like a huge soft spot in my heart for, you know, the Pentologist, because it was my first, you know, like, and it's my baby and all these kids. I love it. But yeah, that is everything. I'll talk to you later, and bye.